Hi everybody, it's Amanda. How are you doing? Today is new moon in Taurus as I make this video, and I'm going to be focusing on a reading for Australia and New Zealand. Apologies, every time I start to make a video I just have to clear my throat, even if I've done it before I press play on the camera. So right, let's get to this then. I have got some questions that have been sent in by some of you. I've also got some incense burning, so if you see smoke going across the screen, that is what it is. And where to start, to be perfectly honest, where to start? I will say that doing readings for countries other than your own is quite challenging, because you're basically dipping into a whole consciousness and culture that you're not necessarily part of, and so I try and bring myself very quickly up to speed, but increasingly I haven't really even got time to do that. So I'm actually going into this, I feel as though I'm going into this completely blind, which maybe is a good way to be anyway when you do intuitive work. But yes, I have got some areas that I want to cover. I'm going to have a look at both PMs. I'm going to have a look at Scott Morrison. I'm also going to have a look at Jacinda Ardern. I'm going to have a look at the dynamic that seems to be existing at the moment between Australia and New Zealand, because as somebody that is external to these two countries and what's going on, I've never visited either of them. Some of the comments that have come in have quite surprised me. I'm picking up some antagonism between the two countries. I'm actually feeling it's like a sibling rivalry. That's what I'm hearing. But I want to sort of delve into that a little bit deeper. And I've already chosen, or I've pulled 2 cards for each country. I'll tell you what they are in a moment, but I felt that I had to put the Metatron Magenta Bridge in between the 2 cards for Australia and the 2 cards for New Zealand. And it feels highly symbolic. It's like there's a bridge needed between these 2 countries and cultures at the moment for some reason. And maybe that is something that isn't new to you. You're not surprised to hear me say that, but I'm surprised to see it. I'm also going to have a look at Uluru. Did I say it right? If I didn't, don't correct me. I think I probably got about 35 people correcting me last time. I'll do my best to pronounce it right. If not, I'm just going to call it Ayers Rock. But I feel as though I want to bring a message through from that. I'm going to obviously refer to the virus and the lifting of restrictions in both countries, which seems to be ahead of certainly where I am in the UK. And indeed, the number of infections and deaths is way below what we are seeing in other parts of the world as well. So we might have a look at that. And there are other questions as well that I'm just going to dip into. Before I do any of that, I want to just say the first thing that I intuitively got as an image in my head, and this links into Australia. I'm going to be dipping in and out of both countries, okay, because it just feels as though they need to be more linked anyway. So I'm not going to do part 1 is about Australia and part 2 is about New Zealand. So we're going to weave both questions and countries' energies into this video. But yeah, I had this image of Scott Morrison, and you know those old-fashioned clocks that usually come from somewhere like Bavaria or Austria, and you usually see them on a town hall. I think there was one in the film Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I'm seeing it in that film. But these old-fashioned clocks, they're usually in a very prominent town building, and they're very ornate. And then when the clock strikes 12 or the clock strikes the hour, there are these characters that come out in front of the clock, and it might be like a drummer, and they do like a marionette type thing. And so the clock is almost like a very visual representation of the movement of the hours as they go around. Well, I feel with Scott Morrison, however he is doing, whether he's doing well or whether he's not doing well, it's as though the Australian template, I want to say. No, template's not the right word. The Australian pattern up to Scott Morrison had been my nose is going, so I know this is the truth, had been very much a succession of in and out. So prime ministers came or premiers came and they were in and out. They didn't seem to last that long. But Scott Morrison has lasted longer than he thought he was going to. I almost feel as though, and that's the thing about the clock, you see, because it's as though, it's not that his time is up, but it's as though he's gone beyond what he expected. So I just thought that was a rather unusual thing to be shown. So then I've pulled a couple of cards just for Australia generally. I'm going to go into those and then we'll go into Scott. Let's just go. I don't know where to start, you see, so let's just start here. What is coming down the road? Coming down backwards in my road right now, because there's always symbolism. There is an orange van. Well, you know orange stands for Metatron. It's a TNT delivery van, and it's actually reversing down my road. Okay, I think I know what this means. Sorry about this with my nose. I don't know why it happens, but when you connect to spirit, sometimes you get an itchy nose. Right, the first two cards out for Australia. This is from Sacred Earth Oracle by Tony Carmine Salerno. This says reaction, and then we've got absence. When I saw these cards, the message that I got was one of the reasons that Australia has been fortunate so far with regard to the first wave of virus infections and deaths is because they have been given a reprieve. And they've been given a reprieve, the country has been given a reprieve, because that expression about God will only give you as much as you can handle comes to mind. And after the devastating fires, the bushfires, that traumatised the country, it's as though for something else to come in as viciously so soon after would have been almost too much to cope with. And I'm getting that message very, very clearly. So it's as though Australia, whether it knows it or not, whether this is conscious or subconscious, there is still a feeling of shock. I'm hearing the word shock. Shock is also linked into the colour orange. We've just seen orange literally going past my window. I'm feeling as though there's still an energy of shock in terms of what happened earlier on in the year with regard to the fires. And this energy of absence as well. Okay, Metatron's saying it's almost as though because there's still feels as though there's a period of shock and mourning and loss, this may very well be subconscious. You may think, oh no, we've all got over that. But no, I don't feel deep down the country has. It's as though the virus has been more absent than it would have been if energetically it had been allowed full steam ahead as the orange van now goes this way forward. Now, the thing that concerns me, and this isn't just applicable to Australia, it's applicable to many countries around the world, is the opening up of the country too quickly can lead to a second wave that will come in that can be worse than the one that's just left. And that concerns me, okay? Because I feel as though this card is just a card of reprieve. It's a card of reprieve. The thing that concerns me about Australia, intuitively I pick up, is as soon as the air travel in particular kicks back in and people are coming back into the country from all over the world, then you're going to get people flying in potentially with different strains of the virus that are not yet existing in Australia in large clumps. Now, that could also be appropriate for other countries around the world as well, but I'm picking it up very strongly for Australia. So how long can you close your borders? How long can air traffic not properly get back to normal, whatever the hell normal is? And I've said before in previous videos that maybe we need to be changing our behaviours anyway. The strain of virus that is in Australia feels as though it's a very different strain from that which is in other parts of the world, particularly Europe, UK. There are stronger strains of the virus in other parts of the world. So when other parts of the world are allowed back in, I think Australia then starts to have a bit of a problem. And but Metatron is saying by that time, more will have been learnt by the other countries that have gone through the first wave. So it really feels as though Australia was spared the first wave, which could have been much worse than it has been. And it's to do with the country needed to get back on its feet energetically and emotionally and practically. But by the time the country properly is back on its feet, and there may be another second wave that comes in, even though it may be more difficult and more painful than the first, you'll be able to have witnessed and have learnt from what other countries have done that experienced a first wave that was worse than the one that you had. Does that make sense? That's what I'm picking up. So those are the first two cards. You see, this reminds me of like the Trojan horse there, that card of absence. It's the Trojan horse. So it's as though the virus comes back into Australia at some point via the Trojan horse. Well, the story of the Trojan horse is, of course, that it's carried in secret. Okay, it's carried in secret. I think Australia has got a very strong customs barrier, hasn't it? Because I'm also seeing literally packages coming into the country that might be contaminated with the virus as well. It's not just people flying in, it's actual packages that fly in. Now, I'm not talking about normal standard post in terms of somebody, you know, like me. I mean, say I've got the virus, I haven't, but say I had and I touch this and then I post it to you and suddenly you're contaminated. It's more that there's something inside some parcels, and I guess it's to do with, I know Australia have got very stringent conditions in terms of what you can get in and what you can't. So I don't think you're allowed to import food and things like that. But I don't know. I think there's a danger somehow that there is things that are imported into the country that also carry the virus with it as well. And I feel that the virus comes back via a Trojan horse type energy. And so my guidance would be, do not let down the barriers too quickly. Do not be complacent. Do not think that this has just passed you by because you're in this part of the world. But the hope is that by the time it comes back in a more dramatic way to your country, we will have learnt a lot, the ones that are going through it, first wave, and it's like we're in at the deep end. As to why, you see, when that piece of information came through to me, I was thinking, well, what about other countries like Africa, for example, who are on their knees in various parts of Africa, and they're being decimated by the first wave? Why haven't they been given the reprieve? Okay, I'm now hearing, it all ties into what I said before. Those of you that follow my work, about, 6 months ago, maybe longer, I channeled something to do with the new wave of consciousness. The new earth energy was going to come from east to west. So it's really important that Australia gets back on its feet. I would include New Zealand in this as well, because they are part of this new wave of new earth energy that needs to sweep across the planet, okay? So they needed the reprieve energetically for that reason, okay? It's not a case of sort of God or a higher consciousness thinking that other people in different parts of the world don't also need a reprieve. This is to do with a much bigger thing than we can even get our heads around in terms of the wave of consciousness that needs to flow from east to west. And I will say here, I'm just seeing more and more evidence that this is so. I'm also seeing America in my mind's eye, which is the equivalent of the other side of the wave, one of the last places to really get the hit of this new earth energy. It's dragging its heels, and this is to do with political situations there. It's not to do with the many good people on the ground in America who are really trying their best to bring in higher consciousness and vibration and are doing so very well. But it's as though whatever wave you're able to do at local level in America is going to be nothing compared to this bigger wave that will eventually hit and will transform that whole country. But they're one of the last to get it. So Australia, New Zealand, for some reason, they needed the time, they needed the space. I will just flip to New Zealand now. The two cards I got for New Zealand were consistency and time. Okay, so in a way, the card of time could be linking into what I've just been talking about, that New Zealand also needed time and space. I'm very struck by the fact that there's two representations of the divine feminine on both cards. Look at this. So the cards for New Zealand have got two ladies, the divine feminine, and here in Australia we've also got two representations of the divine feminine. Not the masculine energy, this is the feminine energy. This is the wave, it's the divine feminine energy that wants to come through. But yeah, in terms of New Zealand, I mean, I think this is Jacinda, basically. Okay, I think this is Jacinda Ardern. I'm going to talk about her in a moment. She's holding the sun, which is to do with illumination. She's bringing brightness in. She's bringing in so much light to the planet, and she's consistent in what she does. It's like she doesn't have an off day, is what I'm hearing. I'm sure she does in private, but it's like publicly she doesn't have an off day. She doesn't make huge faux pas or mistakes. She's very well versed in what needs to be said at any one moment. She's very in tune with her heart. She's also receiving direct guidance from a higher power, and so therefore she's always in alignment. So what you see is always consistently good. I know there are people that don't like her, and I'm going to talk about that later. I actually think she shines a great big torch in people's faces, energetically. You know, when you live with somebody or when you're led by somebody who holds an enormous amount of light, it can be very unsettling for those that don't match the vibration and who are basically triggered by it. But I'll come back to that. Jacinda and the energy she holds, she just knows it's time. She knows it's time for this new wave to flow across the earth. And she also seems to have an interesting energy which links into being a record keeper. So I feel Jacinda's quite an old soul. She's seen a lot on this planet over many, many years. I'm talking previous incarnations. And she understands the context in terms of what's happening now, what's happened in the past, and what needs to happen in the future. I'm really struck by the two contrasts of these cards, though. So this is Australia, which it feels... it feels pretty bleak, to be perfectly honest. It feels quite bleak. I'm getting a coolness. And here we've got warmth. We've got warmth. So let's first turn our attention to Australia and let's see what's going on there. And then we'll do New Zealand. I'm just going to pull some general cards to start with. I'm just going to ask Metatron for some messages for Australia. Got these tiny little cards here. I felt pulled to use these today. So let's just pull some of these. Australia. 3 cards from this deck, please. What is the message for Australia at this time? And I've got too many there. There's about 6. Australia. 3 cards, please. Australia. Explore. I'll put the cards back up in a moment. Love. Cycle. Is there a feeling within Australia that you don't feel loved by the wider world? That's what I'm picking up here with this card, Explore and Love. can you see that this is the world and it's right next to the energy of love? I'm picking up that there's something to do with, and when I say Australia, I'm not necessarily talking about you as an Australian, okay? I mean, it might well be that you feel this as well. I'm talking about it's like the oversoul of the whole country. This is the consciousness of the whole country. It's as though Australia as a land does not feel loved, and doesn't feel as recognised by the wider world. If you look at the landmass in Australia, I mean, you're a big landmass, you know, in terms of the globe. And there's a lot of power there. There's a lot of wisdom there. There's a lot of potential there. But it's yet, I mean, certainly from a Europe perspective, where I'm sitting in terms of the globe, where am I? So here I am sitting here doing this in the UK, just above Europe. And, you know, Australia's sort of like, whoa, it's a hell of a long way away. But I'm also feeling as though Australia is feeling as though it is, it's away from where the action is somehow. And of course, you've got Anzac Day coming up on the 25th of April, haven't you? I had to research what Anzac Day was because I didn't know. But for those that are watching that aren't Australian or New Zealanders, Kiwis, it is basically, it's a Remembrance Day, isn't it? Linking into those that have lost their life through war, particularly the First World War. And it talks about Gallipoli, which is in Italy, and the first time that the combined forces of the Australians and the Kiwis joined forces and went to Italy and fought there. So, and of course, then they would have been where it was at. There's something about feeling of isolation, and how ironic, really, that in other parts of the world, particularly Europe, we're all on sort of this lockdown energy. We're in isolation, actually. We're in self-isolation, a lot of us. But yet the country that has got less virus in its midst may not be as locked down. I mean, it might have been up to this point, but it's going to ease. But yet there's an overall feeling that we're feeling isolated. We're not feeling loved. We're not feeling accepted. We're not feeling... it's as though our true intrinsic nature isn't understood by the wider world. It's like we want to come more centre stage into the world and show the world what we have to offer. That's what I'm picking up here. But you're at the end of a cycle. You're at the end of a cycle. And I feel as though it all fits, doesn't it? Australia's going to become more centre stage as we go into more of a fifth dimensional energy and the energy of New Earth. So what was once sort of the other side of the world, for a lot of people, that is the energy. It's like it's a hell of a long way to go, you know, it's the other side of the globe. It's like it's, you know, all of a sudden it's like the energy of Australia comes much more central for many people. Do you know, I've lived up in Scotland, in the UK. I'm right down on the south coast at the moment, but I've also lived in London. I've lived in lots of different places in the south of England. But when I was 17, I spent about 8 months living up in Aberdeen, which is right up on the north-east coast of Scotland. And I remember feeling just completely and utterly isolated from what was going on down there. That's how I would have described it at that time. It was like what was going on down there in the country. It was like I'm up here. I mean, Aberdeen is absolutely beautiful, as is Australia. You know, I should have just appreciated the beauty that was up there. But I did feel separate from what was happening in the rest of the UK at that time. That's the sort of energy I'm getting with Australia. Let's pull some cards for Scott Morrison and how he is doing. Which deck am I going to use for Scott Morrison? Actually, before I do that, I'm going to pull a Metatron card for Australia. Let's just see what card we get for Australia right now, please. Metatron. One card for Australia. One card for Australia. Water, emotional well-being. Well, you're surrounded by water. It's as though energetically, Australia itself as a overall consciousness, it feels as though you're still in that place that I was talking about 6 months ago. Do you remember I did something, there was something that came through from Dr. Masaru Emoto in my last video, where Masaru Emoto was asking you to put into the water around Australia an energy of welcome. It was to do with welcome energy. And there's something still there in the waters around Australia whereby, I mean, we're an island. You know, I'm living on an island. The UK is an island. But yet there's something here about the fact Australia is this island energy. It feels isolated. The waters feel as though they are something here. I'm not quite sure what it is. So one other card, please, Metatron. Why have we got the water card? Emotional well-being. Yeah, I mean, look at these two cards, you see. This woman's weeping. There are tears here. This is something, this is an energy of sorrow and loss. And now we've got the energy of water, which is also about tears. The need for balanced emotion. One other card, please, for Australia. I feel as though Australia is also, this figure here, if there was such a figure as Mother Australia, you know, it's like she's weeping for the rest of the world. Ooh, it's interesting I said Mother Australia. The divine feminine energy comes from Australia, New Zealand, this wave that's coming. It's like, it is like Australia's like this mother energy, and it's like a mother who's watching what is happening to her children in different places around the world, and she's weeping because there's nothing she can do because she's so far away from where the real devastation is. I'm talking with regard to this virus. So this is very deep. It's very, very deep. Australia. One more card, please, Metatron. Australia. Leadership. Yeah, you see, Australia are being asked to lead. They're being asked to lead. And they will lead. See what's going on with Scott Morrison, because the potential is still there. The wave is still there. There's an energy of pause and reflection, reprieve. I'm not feeling the Chariot energy though. It's like maybe they're waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. Let's have a look at Scott Morrison. What's going on with him? I just want to go to my traditional tarot deck. Scott Morrison. I've had a few questions in from some of you. A few people saying that you feel that he's risen to the challenge since the fires. Probably not everybody would agree with that, but let's just see. I have no idea. Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison. Where are we at, Metatron? Scott Morrison. The King of Cups. Yeah, you see, he's emotional as well. I have to say there's the Seven of Swords on the bottom of the deck, which I don't particularly like. Seven of Swords is this energy of lies, manipulation, dishonesty. I actually feel that might be that he feels as though Australia's got away with, you know, that they've escaped this virus. You know, it hasn't been as bad as we thought it was going to be. Sorry about that phone. Somebody pick it up. There you go. But yeah, he's emotional. He's very emotional. Now, you see, that's the complete opposite of what I read last time with him. I remember I felt his energy as being quite robotic. Sorry, I'm not meaning to be offensive or, you know, those that love him. But, you know, the King of Cups, that's a big shift. Scott Morrison. Judgment, though. There's judgment coming. There's also the Ten of Swords on the bottom of the deck. Is he feeling emotional because something from the past is going to come back to bite him? You know, Ten of Swords is where you literally get taken off the battlefield, mortally wounded. It's what I was saying about the clock that I saw with him. the whole point was that, you know, the clock strikes midnight, the characters come out all sort of like robotic like this. And what I was feeling is one of the characters then just sort of gives that one an elbow and they're out of the game. That's sort of what I'm feeling with him. We've also got the card, the Lovers, which is the card of choice. Then it's the Tower. Then it's the Wheel of Fortune. I mean, I did properly shuffle these cards before I started as well. Wow. 4 major arcana cards for him. Something's going to come up and change in Australia. I think his premiership is up for renewal. There isn't a general election coming though, is there? So I don't know. I think if he is removed from power or he steps down from power, I think it seems to be linked to something that has happened in the past, which he gets caught out by something that's happened in the past. And maybe this is why he's very emotional. Sorry guys, that's probably not the message that you wanted to hear, because, you know, if I was an Australian, you really want to hear that you want stability at this time. You see, again, I'm looking at this card of reaction. It's like, oh my God, oh my God. I mean, the truth is some of our leaders, we are going to be hearing things that they've done in the past, and they are going to be shocking. You know, we know this with a lot of the disclosure that is happening around the world at the moment. It's quite similar. Oh God, for God's sake. I was about to say it's quite similar to Boris Johnson. Look at that, BJ. I know it doesn't stand for Boris Johnson. I was just about to talk about Boris Johnson, and we've got the Empress. You see, the Empress here, although Australia is, of course, an autonomous country, you are still led, well, not led, you have the Queen still, okay? I don't know what she's called, but you're still linked to the Queen, the sovereign. There's a link between the UK and Australia. Boris Johnson. You see, what I was going to say about Boris is that if you've watched my videos I've done on him, I feel that his near-death experience has reformed him, has changed him. I think he's a better man for it. But I just get this sense that there still might be something from the past that is now going to come back and bite him on the backside, basically. And potentially could either mean that he just steps aside, or it's as though he comes back, you know, as almost like the hero. Funny enough, it's St. George's Day today as I'm making this, because the country got behind Boris Johnson and nobody wanted him to die, or, you know, we wanted him to be okay. And everyone was relieved when he was okay. So he's coming back. He hasn't actually come back yet, but when he does, you see, again, it's like this Trojan horse. This isn't just about Boris, you see. I think it's about Scott as well. There's something to do with these men that have upgraded, and then suddenly it's like, yeah, we're off and running. You know, come on, Boris, come on, Scott. And then something comes in that can't be seen. And it's like, oh, well, actually, this happened a year ago, or this happened 2 years ago, or they did this 6 months ago. And it's like something where there is a judgment call. There's a really big judgment call. And maybe I'm hearing they might be the ones that step aside. And, you know, it's like an act of honour. You know, I realised that was wrong. In the past, I would have tried to dodge it and spin it. But actually, I realised that was really wrong. So let's go back to Scott Morrison, because that is what this is about. Let me just go. I'm going to pull again for him. Let's just see what we get again. So we've had that first set of cards, which was just showing change coming and a lot of emotion. What else is the Metatron? Scott Morrison. I'd just like 2 cards, please. Yeah, happy family. 10 of Cups. It might link into the Aboriginal people. You see, that card to me, because they're all sitting around the fire, the campfire, there's an energy there to me which reminds me of Aboriginal people. Maybe it's something to do with something that was done in the past linked to them. Scott Morrison, Metatron, one more card. Scott Morrison, what is it? What is the message, Scott Morrison? Something you can't see. You see the High Priestess again. And again, we've got the Empress. I think there's something to do with there's something, I don't know, maybe there's been some backhanded deal between the UK and Australia. I don't think it's way back. I don't think this is to do with colonization. I can't even say my words today. It's not to do with the when Australia was formed. It's not to do with that. This is something, I don't know what it is. We're not meant to see it. High Priestess, something's hidden. Something hidden. And it seems to be something to do with the Indigenous people, and somehow the UK are linked into this as well. Show me where Scott Morrison is within 6 months' time. Show me Scott Morrison's energy in 6 months' time. Show me Scott Morrison's energy in 6 months' time. Show me Scott Morrison's energy in 6 months' time. Oh, look at that. It's the same card. We're not meant to see. I don't know. And that might be that not sure what the timescale is for all of this. I don't know. How weird. Could also be a bit like Boris Johnson. There seems to be there's a spiritual awakening happening with this guy, which is very hidden. You can't necessarily see it. I'm almost getting like a bad taste in my mouth, which feels sort of like, it's literally like, I'm not sure if I've even got the taste for this anymore. I'm talking politics. I don't know if I've got the taste for this anymore. I don't know if I want to carry on doing this anymore. Yeah, you see, you've got the Hermit card. Going within. Let's go to some questions. Right. This is from Thea Cressmer. Thank you, Amanda. I found you when a friend shared your video in relation to the fires. I feel blessed that we seem to have nipped the virus in the bud for now, but I feel concern about the blatant environmental desecration that is continuing, particularly reckless mining and deforestation and destruction of the Great Barrier Reef. I would love some insight and guidance about this. Right, let's look at that first. There's a few people mentioning worries about environmental policy in Australia. I'm just going to spray the earth spray at this point just to try and help me tune in. So Australia and environmental policies. What is going on? Because, yeah, going back to bad practices, not... Okay, let's see what we can do. What do you say about this? Australia, environmental policies. There's a great big black hole where there should be policy, is what I'm seeing. A vacuum, a void. It's something linked into, a bit like a vacuum or a void. I'm seeing, I just want to say leaders, and it's as though they're peering into it in terms of, well, we really should try and do something about that, you know? We should try and do something about that. But it's like, if we do that, we're going to be sucked into all of that. It's as though the problem feels very large, very big. And it's like, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. So I'll just pretend that great big black void type hole type vacuum, which is actually getting bigger and bigger and bigger because the problems are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like, I'm just going to try and pretend that's not really there. That's of course not going to work. Okay, that black hole is going to demand attention at some point. Uluru. I wonder what she wants to say. Uluru. Well, last time I sort of linked into the energy of Uluru, I was talking about she was recharging her battery back up. And it's like now I'm just seeing like she's back to full power. And it's as though It isn't a volcano, is it? No, I don't think it is a volcano, but I'm seeing a volcano. But I'm sure this is just symbolic. It's like all this energy just wants to fire off, fire off into all of the different quarters of Australia, and wake people up, basically. She's wanting to wake people up. So she came offline for a reason. People weren't allowed to climb for very valid reasons. She's now fully charged. She's actually overcharged almost. And it's as though some of this fiery energy within her needs to be sparking off to all of the different four corners of Australia. I'm just going to put in Uluru volcano. And I'm sure it isn't a volcano, but why am I picking that up? Is Uluru a volcano? I don't know. I'm getting a bit of a headache now as well. She needs to, when I say explode, she needs to release some of the energy that's in her. Wow. Anybody got near her recently? I know you're not allowed to climb her, but it's like, oh, the heat coming off her is something else. And there needs to be a release there. Yeah, the vast universe. I'm hearing she's the true leader of Australia. Energetically, she's the true leader of Australia. Has there been any explosion of violence, or I'm feeling like an explosion of violence, which isn't a very nice thing to say, but it's just this red energy, headachy, needing release. What is this? Just going to imagine I'm standing right in front of her. What are you trying to say? I will be heard. I will be seen. I am now in my full power. I'm fully activated. You know what I was saying about Australia feeling isolated from the rest of the world? It's just like she's this enormous beacon that has brought people to Australia's doors before. But it's like the rest of the world really waking up to her power as well. She's like this beacon, this leader. I will be heard. I will be listened to. Oh, okay. I understand what she's trying to say. It's because of the absence of the environmental policies that need to come in. It's the disrespect that's being done to the land, the air, the sea, the elements. She's furious. She's furious. at the desecration of the land and the air and the sea and the water in around Australia. That's what it is. That I couldn't quite understand it. That's what it is. So it's like she is demanding that changes come into being. And energetically, somehow she's going to see that this happens. I don't know how, but that's what I'm picking up. Okay, let's go to another question. Right, what's all this about? A lot of people are saying, so here's one, Adrian Chenery. Thank you, Amanda, from New Zealand. Is Australia in the future going to give better access to the hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders living and working in Australia? And a few people are mentioning this. So why is there this energy of... Yeah, here we go. I'd like to ask if the relationship between both countries would improve. I'm a Kiwi living in Australia and find it hard to understand why the Australian government treats Kiwis living here so badly. I didn't realise why that was going on. Okay, let's just have a look at that. I keep going back to this sibling rivalry. It's like, well, it's like a jealousy, but it's one way. Sorry, but it feels like it's the Australian energy that is jealous towards the Kiwis. It's not the other way around. The only way I can describe it is it's like two siblings fighting. Underneath it all, of course, there's great love and there's great respect. Australia feels like this bigger brother type energy. New Zealand's like this little sister type energy. That's what I'm picking up. And the big brother is not appreciating what the little sister actually has got to offer, and that the little sister is just as powerful as the brother. It's to do with like flexing muscles somehow. It's not to do with it's to do with the powers there. It's to do with the leadership there. And I'm not just talking Scott Morrison. I'm talking about entrenched energy within positions of power there. Let's have a look at the relationship between Australia and New Zealand at the moment. Just show me the energy of the relationship between Australia and New Zealand at the moment. Australia and New Zealand. Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, exactly. Look at that. Victory at any... There's a battle on. It's a battle on between these two. And it's the King of Wands who is the one that's showing here. It's a male energy. And we've also got the Four of Swords. There is a battle on between the two countries energetically and maybe also practically. And it seems to be linked into this King of Wands type energy. It's to do with power, and it needs to stop, basically. You know, the four of Swords is just this energy of, you know, reprieve, rest, stop. You know, is this battle worth fighting over? Who is winning at what cost? You know, at the moment it feels as though the top dog energy is the Australian energy, but at what cost? You've got a sibling energy over the sea, you know, who wants to work with you. I'm feeling this is coming. What's behind it? What is behind it? What is behind this King of Wands behaving like this? Because to be honest, it's not Scott Morrison. It's not just him. This is like an endemic thing. It's whoever's sitting in power in Australia. There seems to be there's been this constant struggle that's been going on. What's behind it? Queen of Pentacles, Hanged Man. Yeah, the need to see things from a different perspective. It's a power battle. It's a power battle. And unfortunately, people on the street are caught up in it. That's the truth, isn't it? When we take it away from Australia and New Zealand for a moment, if you think about other countries around the world and you think about other leaders that you might really disapprove of the way they behave, and what it does often is it starts to taint the whole country, and you start to think that all I will use America as an example. All Americans, for example, might be like the particular leader that's in power. I'm not just talking Trump, I'm talking about other people that have been in power that maybe as an outsider you look on and you think, oh my God. But then it isn't, the average American isn't like that. It's something similar here. This is all to do with power play at the top. It's got nothing to do with the people on the street, as it were. They're just caught up in this ridiculous battle. Power battle, that's what it is. It's a power battle that's going on, and it needs to stop. But it does feel very one-sided. It does feel as though it's coming more from Australia than New Zealand. What do New Zealand feel about Australia? Let me see the energy coming the other way then. Show me the energy from New Zealand towards Australia. Show me the energy from New Zealand towards Australia. How do New Zealand view Australia? How does New Zealand view Australia? There's a feeling of just want to get the words right. Ignored is the word. Ignored. There's a feeling of being ignored because ultimately they are sensing more that Australians are our brothers and sisters. We all just want to sit around that campfire. There's also something, there's like an interlocking energy to do with the Indigenous people, the Maoris and the Indigenous people of Australia. And it's like, they just know that the Indigenous people of these two lands know how much these two countries have in common with each other. And there's a feeling of sadness at being ignored or treated somehow as a second-class citizen. This card here, I've never been to Australia, but I know I've never been to New Zealand. My husband has, and he's shown me all these amazing photographs of the mountains and everything. That looks like a New Zealand energy to me. Two of Pentacles. Can't we all just get along? What's the problem here? I always like the Two of Pentacles as an energy. It's sort of like, come on, let's just be friends. What's the issue? Let's choose peace and happiness towards each other. Stop the battle. Okay. Right, I want to now have a look at Jacinda Ardern. I might very well come back to Australia in a bit, but let's just have a quick look at Jacinda. I'm going to bring in, I'm just going to clear the energy with white sage. Jacinda Ardern, what is there to say? She's a strong lady. Her energy, she's strong on the outside, but she's also strong on the inside. I was looking to see, is she a little bit, I don't know, not weaker, but softer inside. She's really strong. She's strong inside. She's strong outside. What you see is what you get. There are no masks. There are no masks. I've read some crazy stuff, over the last few months about Jacinda Ardern, and that, she's one of the dark people on this planet. No, she's not. She's just not. And that's just false misinformation if you're reading that. I'm not picking that up at all. What Metatron always says is look at how people, just look at their energy. Just look at their energy. You've only got to look at the lady's energy to see that she's good. You can see the light. It's pouring out of her. It pours out of her speech. It pours out of her actions. She is not dark. Okay, so let's just have a look. Jacinda Ardern. Jacinda Ardern. Yes, thank you. Exactly. Authenticity. She's authentic. She's completely authentic. She'll look you in the eye she is who you think she is. She's authentic. She's absolutely authentic. And because she's able to look you in the eye with no false agenda, she triggers the hell out of some people. Because it's almost like what I'm hearing is like, you're too good to be true. You're too good to be true. You can't really be like that. You know, just preaching love and forgiveness and, you know, blah, 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 you know, going and hugging and holding people's hands. Where's that going to get you? It's that sort of lower energy that tries to pull down somebody who's actually just a good person. She's just a good person. Not perfect. I'm sure she's not perfect. Nobody is. But what you see is what you get with her. She's authentic. She'll look you in the eye. And you see, that's what she's trying to teach people to do. Look at this card. Look at the people behind her, the shadows. She's wanting to lead a nation, lead a tribe, and for people to step into their authenticity. A lot of people can't do that. They can't do that. They'll run from who their authentic self is. They will hide behind masks because it's easier. And so of course she is being targeted and people are saying, you're not that, you're this. No, she's this. She is that good. She is that light. All right, let's pull a few more cards for Jacinda. Let's see where she is right now. Jacinda Ardern. You see, also, that reminds me of the head covering. You know, when there was that awful shooting in Australia, you know, she covered her head, didn't she? And she reached out to people of different faiths. She just knows she knows what to do. It's as normal as breathing to her. She's not having to follow a script. She's not having to scratch her head and think, how do I react in this particular scenario? She knows how to act in any scenario. It's natural. Yeah, exactly. There she is, taking steps. That's the energy of an empress type energy. She's also got ascended masters. She works with many ascended masters. You know, whether she would admit to that or not, whether she even knows that or not, I've no idea. But there are many ascended master energies that are working through her. Kuan Yin, I'm hearing, is one. Christ is another with the dove. She's got a number of different energies that work through her. So she's surrounded by ascended masters. She's doing spirit's work. She understands unity consciousness. She understands that we're all linked. She's going to trigger the hell out of a lot of male world leaders. Let's be honest about it, okay? Because it's like, who are you? Who are you to be the queen? Well, the queen's not the right energy. That's not the right word. I just mean the empress. Who are you to be the empress that thinks you're entitled to power, okay? Who are you? And it's a bit like the story, it is like the story of Cinderella, isn't it? The one that they try and banish and, you know, you just go and sweep the floor, you know, you're not entitled to come to the ball. Well, Spirit has a way of waving the wand and saying, no, you too shall come to the ball, you know? You're entitled to this position. You were born for this position. And she's taking on the establishment, which is why people are trying to take her down and say, no, you're not, you know, she's not. She's one of them. She's one of the dark. She's not one of the dark. It's just nonsense. There's so much nonsense out there. And if I'm triggering you by saying that and you completely disagree with me, that's fine. But, you know, I'm going to say what I get intuitively on anybody that I tune into. So she's taking steps with intention. What else can we say about her? She's also got a family. Yeah, we know that. And because she has a family, she cares about families. She cares about children. She understands things such as, you know, work-life balance. She understands the importance of time and honouring space in terms of, you know, people needing, I don't know, I'm being drawn to like maternity leave. I don't know whether she's brought in stuff to do with maternity leave and men being able to have more time, you know, when their wives give birth. It's that type of thing. She just seems to understand that, you know, this is a basic human right to protect the family. I think she might bring in some quite interesting ideas in terms of education if she hasn't already done so. Jacinda Ardern. Yeah, you see, your higher self. She's just very, she's very, very connected to spirit, very connected to her higher self, very connected to the ascended masters. I'm tuning in that she is, although she's a politician on the world stage, she is very focused on her own country. And I know all leaders are focused on their own country, but she really, really is. She passionately cares about her country and her people. And again, it's to do with, this is where the change starts. This is where the change starts. What's her attitude towards Scott Morrison? What's her attitude towards Scott Morrison? She keeps her feelings quite close to her chest about how she actually feels about him. Again, this is somebody who is keeping things close to their chest. 6 of Swords. She'd quite like him to vacate the stage is what I am feeling. And it's to do with, she wants to be dealing with leaders who lay all their cards out on the table. This is who I am. This is me. No false pretenses. Let's have a couple of these cards for Jacinda. Patience and intuition. The cards are all just saying the same thing. She's intuitive. Got the card of the universe. That came up before. That came up when I was looking at Australia and I was talking about Uluru and the fact that it was wanting to command attention. When the next PM arrives in Australia, whenever that is, whether it's in a month's time, a year's time, 5 years' time, it's not going to be as long as that though. Hopefully that person's going to be more of an environmentalist, and that's when you'll see a real thawing of the relationship between the two countries and people will start to work together more. You see, it says patience, divine timing. Look at that. Persistence, maturity. Yeah, brilliant. What a great leader. Great, great leader. Okay, I'm just going to see if there's any other couple of questions I can quickly address, if that's possible. And let's just go and have a look. Hi everybody, it's Amanda. How are you doing? Today is, what is today? Today's Friday the 24th of April 2020. And I'm not quite sure as I'm recording this whether I'm going to stitch the two videos together for Australia and New Zealand or do them separately. So I'm either saying hello completely and hopefully you've watched part 1, or this is just a continuation and you're thinking, oh, she's got a different dress on and her hair's down, you know. But anyway, it is actually the following day. I was actually getting quite tired towards the end of that last video. And there were some really important, valid questions that were coming through that I wanted to address, but I wanted full energy to be able to do that. Now, I'm going to burn some sage at this point, and this is quite important. And yesterday I was talking about the fact that I felt Uluru was back to full power and was demanding that we pay attention to her energetically. And indeed, the whole world will start to feel the energy now that she's powering up. And my God, I'm having a hot flush. And I tell you what, I'm not having hot flushes at the moment. So this is the first one I've had in probably about 6 or 7 months. So this is the Uluru energy. Where's my fan? She's powering up. I felt that yesterday. I just felt the heat coming off her. And wow, I'm feeling it again now. So I want to just light some sage. Let's just do that and see what we're going to do in this second part of this video or new video, dependent on what I've done with it. Okay, so let's just light some sage for the new energy to come in. And more than anything, for the new energy to be noticed and witnessed. I don't know anything about smoke signals. But those of you that know anything about smoke signals, I'm being given that just to say to whoever that applies to. Of course, the indigenous ones and the elders always knew that there were signs within the smoke. Why am I getting that, guys? Why am I getting that? I'm seeing the campfire again. And I'm seeing the smoke rising from the campfire on the land around Uluru. And she's sending out a signal. I'm hearing again, it's an SOS signal. Now again, you know, my work every video sort of merges into each other. There's always a continuation of theme. So if you've watched the video that I titled SOS Titanic, from a few days ago, when I was showing you the red flare going up in the sky, or there was a red something or other in the sky in the UK, and I felt it was a flare, an SOS flare. Well, here I'm feeling as though there is another sign around Uluru, but it's linked into like a smoke signal. So if there are any Indigenous people that watch me and who perform ceremonies with fire around that area, maybe you could let us know what I'm tuning into. You see, I'm watching this smoke now and it's changing. It was going up in a straight line and now it's doing that. It's going up in a spiral. Oh, okay. It links into that card that I got yesterday. I'm just trying to remember which pack it was from. It was the card of the universe. Do you remember? The universe card. I don't know whether I've still got it out. But it was the spiral going up to the universe. So what Uluru is doing is this one. That's what I'm seeing in the smoke, okay? It's what the smoke's doing. I'm seeing there is this energetic signal coming up from around Uluru or from the summit of Uluru, and it is bringing in a lot of help to the planet. One of the last times that this happened in terms of a really big wave of help coming in, what I was taught was that it was actually after, you see, this morning I woke up and I heard Land of the Rising Sun. And I thought, what the hell does that mean? Land of the Rising Sun, that's a link to Japan. I thought, well, we're not doing anything about Japan here. Why is that coming in? I thought, is there a link to Japan and New Zealand and Australia that's going to be growing over time? Well, maybe. But now what I'm wanting to say is that I believe one of the biggest influx of galactic help that came into our planet was after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it's as though the universe, the galactic, saw what we were capable of, i.e. blowing ourselves up, and sent in just like droves and armies of light beings and help to stabilise and balance out the planet. Now, I'm not saying we're about to have another Hiroshima or anything like that, but I am feeling as though the earth is very unstable at the moment. The consciousness is very unstable. I'm being shown it seesaws very sharply between dark and light, even more than it ever has done. We're seeing that in our spiritual communities as well. We're seeing that within ourselves. Some days we're feeling full of light. Some days we're sort of feeling very, very low and consumed by darkness and shadow. So I feel as though there is another big influx of galactic help coming in, and it seems to be linked into a signal that Uluru sends up to the wider universe for help. It's like help is needed and help is coming. So it's almost as though I'm seeing this big galactic starship effectively above Uluru. That's what I'm seeing. And it's huge. It's like a flat disc. It's white, silver, and it's not just about beaming people down or beings down to help us. It's actually beaming down an energy to help us. Because what I was shown yesterday, and I was saying, is Uluru a volcano? Well, I know she's not, but it's the only way I could describe the energy that was wanting to come up and be released from her, in the same way that, the lava and the magma comes up from the volcano and it has to spew out, and it goes and it travels really, really fast. Lava just has a life of its own. It just moves over whatever landscape it finds itself in. It can move and it can dissipate. And that's what I'm feeling. It's as though the starship is above Uluru. There's this energy, galactic energy that comes down, and then somehow it just is able to be transmitted and spread out. I'm actually hearing to the four corners of the earth. So it's not just Australia. This is something that's needed for the earth as well. You see on the bottom of the deck, I've just picked up this deck to use today, and I've got the death card, but this is linked into the death of the old. It's linked into the death of the old earth. And so for the new earth to come in, it's as though we need universal and galactic help. And it's as though Uluru is well placed to serve at this time. I did mention yesterday that I was calling her the true leader of Australia. And okay, she's not a person, but she is a being. She's a sentient being. And at the end of the day, you might shake your head at that and think, well, that's a bit weird. Of course, she's not the leader of the country. Well, who do you think who has been leading us the last few months? You might look at your premiers and your prime ministers and think, oh, well, it's this person, it's that person. Of course, they are, what Metatron is saying, they are stewards on the ship. But actually, the person that's been leading us over the last few weeks is Mother Earth. We've all had to listen. We've all had to sit up and listen. We've all had to change our behaviours. We've all had to change our lifestyles drastically, way beyond anything we ever thought we would do. And it's because Mother Earth put herself very firmly in charge as captain. And the people appointed to be leaders on this earth, that they're the stewards. They're not the captain. Okay. So in the same way, it's like Uluru now is powering up as this mother energy, and she's going to bring in what we need as a world. Okay, let me just see if I can get any more about that. Let me just link into the Ashtar sprays. This is Commander Ashtar. I'm just showing you the sprays as I'm using them in these videos. Yeah, and again, you see, Ashtar wants to bring it down to a very grounded earthly level, which I know I'm talking about galactics, but that's the connection I have with him, because he's wanting us to remember that we are all made of, we all have galactic origins within the human body. As I've said before in other videos that I've made, whatever makes up the atoms and the particles, it all derives from outer space. Go and look at Brian Cox's work on that. The scientist Brian Cox that I mentioned on my live stream. He talks about that a lot. One of his quotes that he's very attributed to is, "We are all made of stardust." I think Bowie probably said that as well. But it's the truth. So rather than just thinking, oh my God, there's this big starship and it's like these aliens coming down to help us. No, what they're bringing down is particles. They're raining down these particles. Think of it a bit like magic dust, okay? And they're sprinkling that down. And because it gets sprinkled down upon the earth, I'm hearing, well, what does the earth do? The earth is the place where we grow our crops. So when we then eat those crops, we ingest the particles that have been put into the earth from a higher dimensional space. We integrate it because we actually eat it. So that's sort of how it manifests and how it works. Anything else? Australia, New Zealand, that part of the world. I'm just showing that I'm just being shown. I keep being shown they're just lighting up first for some reason. So it's like the first couple of chords of an amazing song that's about to be played, or an orchestra. It's like the first notes are being struck there for some reason. Australia is interesting as well, I'm hearing. It's to do with the fact that it is much more of a melting pot than it realises it is. So the old sort of, I can't get my words out. The old stereotypical view of what an Aussie is, let's put it that way, is not really what an Aussie is. That's Bella outside the door. I'm being shown, I'm just being shown it's a land where many people came. Of course, you know, Brits, Europeans, but it's just a land which is very richly steeped with a number of different cultures. And that is as it should be. So again, without wishing to be too political, and I said this before in my first Australia video, which was why Dr. Masaru Emoto was putting the welcome energy around the seas of Australia. It's really unhelpful for the energy of that land to keep people out from different places, because it's supposed to be this portal, I'm hearing. It's supposed to be this portal which is multifaceted, multiracial, and multidimensional. So how can you have multidimensional galactic energy pouring in if you haven't got upon the shore people that also represent all people around the earth? I'm also being shown America, so it's like these two different sides of the axis. Both need to be melting pot type energies for some reason, and it's like I'm being shown a bridge now that needs to be healthy in that respect. So closing the borders for both countries is energetically not helpful at a higher dimensional level. Okay. I am also being shown the UK, and I'm thinking, oh, am I just being shown the UK because I'm sitting in it? But no, I don't think I am, because I'm seeing it in terms of the world view. It's like the UK is sort of bang in the centre. You've got the US, you've got you've got Australia, and then we've got the UK, this tiny little island up here in the middle of nowhere, really, in the Atlantic Ocean. But again, there, in the UK, it's supposed to be this melting pot type energy. So. Got that song by Blue Mink in my head now. Melting pot, Blue Mink, yeah. Some of the words are a little bit un-PC these days, but you know, it was done in the 60s and it was a different time, different era, but you get the gist of what they were trying to say. It's a good song, Blue Mink. Yeah, you see, because again now, I look at this card, Authentic Self, and it's as though that person is really representative of many different faiths, many different cultures, many different peoples. Okay, right. So having done that message just came from nowhere. Let's see what we're going to do in this particular reading. I must just say, the first question that I saw on my Facebook page today, just a private message that had come in, was, can you read on Jacinda Ardern? Because I've heard she's got satanic energy. So I've covered that in the previous video. I'm not picking up anything linked into that. But, you know, it seems to be, I've said it all. So you just go back and watch that. I'm just going to pull a card today for how are these two leaders feeling today? Okay, I just like a snapshot of their particular energy today. So let's firstly look at Jacinda, and I'm being drawn to use a different deck. I'm going to use the Spirit Oracle deck by Tony Carmine Salerno. It's interesting that I keep picking Tony Carmine Salerno decks because I believe he is Australian, isn't he? That's probably why. Right, this is Spirit Oracle. I think this is quite an old deck, but let's just see. Let's pull one card for Jacinda, and then we're going to go back and pull one card for Scott Morrison. Do you know, I went into a bit of a doubt yesterday after I'd finished recording, because it was like, oh my God, nobody's talking about Scott Morrison standing down. Are you sure, Amanda? You know, but, you know, Metatron had a bit of a word with me, because the thing is, when you work for Spirit, you just have to put out what you get. You can't edit it. You can't go back and think, actually, I'm not sure I really liked that message, or is that the most acceptable message for people to hear. You've just got to put out what you get. So that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, I did go into a bit of doubt. I knew that card was going to come out for Jacinda. Magic. And you see, this is why people are sort of accusing her of like, oh my God, is she satanic? Is she into dark magic? You know, look at whatever it is, you know. No, it's because actually this woman does hold an enormous amount of magical power. She's an alchemist, basically. And I think when you're faced with somebody who's able to do that, who is an alchemist, who's able to change energy states very easily, it can be misconstrued. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. Those of us that are in spiritual circles, which is probably all of us watching this, how many of you have been accused of like, oh my God, you're a witch, aren't you? You're a witch. You know, you do this stuff, and you read these cards, and you spray those sprays, and you're looking at these pictures. We're back to all the fundamental Christianity. You know, you do this, that's the devil's work, isn't it? It's a bit sort of what I'm getting with her, which is like she's able to weave. When I say she's able to weave a spell, what I mean by that is it's a positive spell, and it's not a spell in term. It's the truth is, what we do here effectively is a form of white magic. White magic is basically when you're doing something for the benefit of others, and that it doesn't contravene any natural laws. It doesn't contravene people's free will. It's not done for malice. It's not done to hurt anybody. It's not done to maim anybody. It's basically using alchemy skills for the highest good. And that's what she's able to do. But I think some people just misunderstand that, and they look at her power and they question it. And also what I'm hearing Metatron say here as well is the world isn't used to seeing a woman completely and utterly standing in her power. They really aren't. And so when you see it, it's almost like, whoa, what is that? That can't be real. You know, that can't be real. That has to be something other. She must have got to that position by using some sort of ulterior motives. No, she just has the ability to be able to create magic. It's like what I was just saying about the ship above Uluru, you know, sprinkling down the magic dust. Nobody questions that. It's like, oh yeah, let's have a bit of that. That sounds great. But then as soon as you see a woman really holding her power and challenging the status quo, and actually when I say holding her power, just also being able to express a softness, you know, softness rather than the old patriarchal energy, it can be very, very challenging and very triggering for a lot of people. So yeah, she's got the card of magic, blessings, transformation. A blessing in disguise is coming your way. Keep an open heart and mind. You see, I think she has that. I think she does have an open heart, and I think she's got a very open mind. And what I mean by that is she's open to hear other people's opinions that differ from her own. She will still make her own decision on the back of that, but she's not closed. She's not tunnel visioned in that way. So she gets that card. Those colours keep coming up at the moment, magenta and gold as well. You see, magenta is the bridge. Magenta's the bridge energy. Gold is about wisdom. Magenta is also about being in the present moment. So she's very able just to deal with what matters today. I think a lot of politicians get caught up with worrying about tomorrow. You know, how's history going to judge me? What's my legacy going to be? And she's very much just about what is today's problem? Let me just deal with today's problem. She's very much in the present moment. Okay, let's have a look at Scott. Scott Morrison, how are you doing today? Scott Morrison. Secret knowledge. Yeah, I think he's having an awakening, this guy. I do think he's having an awakening. Now, whether it's for the benefit of the whole of the country of Australia, I'm not quite sure, or whether it's just a personal awakening that people won't become aware of. But let's hope it's obviously for the benefit of Australia. This is ancient and sacred knowledge is waiting within the heart of the earth. You see, when I pulled his card, did you hear that bird? It was like squawking, and I heard call of the wild. Call of the wild. So this guy is on an awakening path, most definitely, which is good. Ancient and secret knowledge is waiting within the heart of the earth, yearning to be discovered. It's almost like, I said Uluru is actually the real leader of Australia. It's like she is communicating with him. She's trying to get through to him. It's like she wants him to visit her. There really is, there's like this pull of energy from her towards him, that there is secret knowledge here. There is secret knowledge within you. You need to tap into that. If you can tap into that, it's going to help you. It's going to help the country. So that's how those two are doing today. Let's now just go into some questions. Right. Wendy Fraser, thank you, Amanda, for all the support and insight you give us. I am in Victoria, Australia. I'm going to dip between the two countries. Like others, I've followed you since the bushfire reading. I'm wondering, will we get better at more local manufacturing and less importing from China? What will we have learned moving forward post-virus? So this is probably something that's very applicable to all the world again, because all countries are now looking at that in terms of actually why are we shipping things in from the other side of the world when we could be producing our own apples or, whatever it is. So let's just have a look. Let's just see, linking into Australia firstly. So I'm going to say the relationship with China. Let's just have a look at the relationship with China. Ooh. Well, I did put that back into the deck. But it's fallen out again. And look at the cards that are just sort of wanting to come through. This one is the Hanged Man. Oh, that one's wanted to come through as well, the Chariot. And we've also got the 10 of Swords on the bottom of the deck. Now, yesterday, when I was looking at Scott Morrison, do you remember that card came through? And I said it's as though his time is coming to a close as a premier at some point relatively soon, and it's as though he's carried off the battlefield. Well, I wonder whether there's something here linking into ties with China as well. I talked about ties with the UK, but anyway, in terms of the question I've just asked now, relationship with China, we got the Death card. I wanted to do that. I wanted to wash my hands of it. Now, whether that is possible in unity consciousness, to be perfectly honest, guys, I don't know, because it's all very well to say that, and I do understand it in terms of we should be producing things more locally and being able to be more self-sufficient as countries. I think that's definitely one of the lessons on the back of what we're going through as a world. But equally, every single country has particular skills. Now, Metatron is saying to me, very much like I channeled before, about every single person has particular skills. And so you need to go to the person that's got that particular skill. It's the same with particular countries. He says particular countries are going to become more known as centres of excellence in particular things. This has always been so to a degree, but it's going to become more apparent. Whereas at the moment, a lot of countries are sort of what he's calling jack of all trades. So, for example, I'm sure you don't import apples from China, but say you did, why would you import an apple from China? It makes absolutely no sense at all. But on the other hand, China are very good. I'm being shown the technology such as these phones, televisions, Wi-Fi. I was going to say Wi-Fi, 5G. Okay, there are things that we go to particular countries for, right or wrong, and I don't think that is going to stop. But certainly there are other goods that It's like, wash our hands, come on, we need to do things in a different way. The Hanged Man is basically saying, you know, enough of this reliance on China. We need to be moving ahead on our own as a country without them. And I'm sort of feeling it's a bit like an energy of cutting your nose off to spite your face, to be honest. Because I don't, well, let me just ask. Let me just pull another 3 cards because I'm feeling there's something else here. It's something linked into don't be too proud to ask for help. It's as though I'm being shown the scales again. What we don't want to happen as a world is we swing wildly from one extreme to another. So the whole lesson of this virus is about balance. So what can't happen is any country around the world, at the moment we're focusing on Australia, but this message is for many countries. Many countries import all sorts of different things from all sorts of countries all over the world, okay? That isn't sustainable, I'm hearing, in terms of the earth, okay? In terms of climate change, pollution, what it takes to get a pineapple from one part of the world to another part. That's just crazy. But equally, so that's wrong, that needs correcting. But to go totally the other way in terms of we're just going to produce everything isn't right either, because the world needs to trade with the world, okay? There needs to be this system of trading with the world, trading with each other other countries, also understanding that other countries are centres of excellence, and some countries are just better at certain things than other countries. That's the truth. So there needs to be this balance between the two. So in terms of Australia, I'm hearing grain production. I don't know what that means. Do you produce a lot of grain? Okay, grain production, I'm hearing. There's a hell of a lot of land, which I'm sure is farmable. So I'm seeing grains. Tourism is a difficult one. I'm being drawn to tourism. Again, that's a big old issue because I'm worried about the borders just being opened up to everybody again. We are going to have wave after wave of this virus, you see, unfortunately. I mean, look at this card, Sacred Knowledge for Scott Morrison. I just said wave after wave. I don't know how long he stays as PM, but it's like there are waves of this virus for every country. And he needs to tap into sacred wisdom to help steer the country forward. I'm going to pull a card on for tourism in Australia, because I guess it must be one of the, I don't know, in terms of the economy, what it brings into the economy. What can you tell me about tourism? And by tourism, I'm talking about tourists coming into the country. Tourists coming into the country. That card came upside down, which is the card of Lovers, which is the choice card. Oh, there is no choice. There is no choice at the moment. Okay, well, there is no choice because the borders are closed. Okay, tourism. What can you tell me about tourism for Australia? That's too many cards, please. Just 2 more cards. Tourism, Australia. It will come back. Reunion, the card of reunion, celebration, rejoicing, but not yet. Not yet. The money will come back into the country. I'm wanting to say there's 3 waves. Don't shoot the messenger, please, okay? I know it's not a particularly popular thing to say. I feel there's 3 waves. But after the 3rd wave, it's like, yeah, we're on top of this now. We can reopen. The truth is, of course, the country may very well reopen way before the 3rd wave has hit. But I'm just seeing for all countries, it's like lockdown and then reopening and then pulling back into lockdown and then reopening. But each time the lockdown is slightly different. The impact is slightly different. The lessons are slightly different. So I'm feeling like there's 3 waves of it, and then there's this rejoicing. But at the moment, the Lovers, it's like, no, you know, there is no choice. People can't come in. Okay. So will you get better at more local manufacturing and less importing from China? Yes, you will. Let's have a look at the economy of Australia and then the economy of New Zealand. Firstly, show me the economy of... I need another deck, I think. Let's go to the Naysayers Tarot. I would like, please, to look at the economy going forward of Australia. And I'm talking 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 6 to 12 months, the economy of Australia. 4 cards, economy of Australia, 6 to 12 months time. I'm not going to show you because it's private, but I'm just looking over there and I'm looking at a photograph of myself with my 2 children. I can show you. I will show you because it's probably about 16 years ago. They don't look like that anymore. It's a lovely photograph, isn't it? But the thing is, I was looking at that photograph and I was thinking it takes time to grow. It takes time to grow a child in terms of inside of you, but it also takes time to grow them into adulthood. You see, one of those girls is 18 in a couple of weeks' time. So, but I was thinking about Australia's economy as I was looking at them. So it's as though it's going to take time to grow it back, which is probably no surprise. Every single economy is going to be hit. Let's have a look at Australia. Australia economy, 6 to 12 months. What is the message, please, Metatron? Queen of Wands. Page of Wands. A lot of energy, a lot of activity. A lot of people trying to get it back to where it was and better. Led by the Divine Feminine again. Australian economy. The Emperor. 10 of Wands. 3 of Cups. Yes, we've got the 3 of Cups twice. So you do get back up on your feet. There is happiness again. There is rejoicing. It's a new world that arrives. Order does come back. I want to say quicker than you think it will come back, actually. You see, the Emperor is the card of order and law and rules and regulations. So based around the economy, that's a good, strong card. And it comes in on the back of the Queen of Wands and the Page of Wands, 2 female energies, but this is all fast-moving energy. A lot of passion, a lot of motivation, a very motivated people who will rise to the challenge that these days are producing within the country. But, you know, let's not just paint us such a rosy picture, because also it's blinking hard work. Okay, 10 of Wands. So it's a lot of work, but there is the passion, the motivation, and just the sheer energy to get it back up and running. So I quite like those cards. They're good cards. I do wonder who this Queen of Wands and the Emperor is. Just pull a card for Scott Morrison from this deck, because I don't think that Emperor holding that chess piece is Scott, but maybe it is. I don't know. It's got the sign of Aries, hasn't it? It is also a man who is not white, okay, in this particular deck. I don't know whether that means anything. And also in this, the Queen of Wands also, she's not white. So is there a politician in Australia? Well, of course there's a politician in Australia who isn't white, but it's somebody, it's non-white. It's a non-white leader, potentially, that might come in next. I don't know. Let's show me Scott in all of this. Scott, 6 to 12 months. We had the High Priestess yesterday, didn't we? One card, please. Sorry. Flying all over the place. Scott Morrison. How does he fit into this economy and revival and motivation? Scott Morrison. The Magician. And the Hierophant. Well, those are better cards than yesterday. You see, he can do it. You know, we've got different timelines at play here. If he can really dig into what he knows, what is within him, this sacred knowledge, this calling from Uluru, this awakening, he can be the magician that sees the country through this time. But it's like, is he going to be that or not? Because we've also got the Hierophant, which is the card of learning. How quickly can he get up to speed? How quickly can he learn? How quickly can he remember? Because I believe we've all got it within ourselves, actually. We just forget. We forget our power. We forget what we know. Okay. Well, they're looking quite good. Okay, those cards are quite good for Australia in terms of the economy. I think you're going to bounce back. Well, of course you are, Metatron's saying, because it's where it's supposed to be originating from, east to west. Okay, so you're not going to be on your knees for long. No. There's too much energy there. There's too much vibrancy. There's too much hope. And you're going to be helped by Uluru. You're going to be helped by this galactic energy that's coming in directly over you. Let's have a look at New Zealand. New Zealand's economy. There's a lot of wealth there. For such a small country, there's a lot of wealth there. Wealth in the truest sense of the word, Metatron is saying. Not just material wealth, spiritual wealth. Right, what we got? For such a small country, we've got the world. This has got the platonic solids on this card. The platonic solids are the building blocks of creation. It's next to the card of the sun. King of Wands. Six of Cups. They're good. They're good cards as well. Okay. You see, Six of Cups is the card of the past. And Metatron is saying something to do with New Zealand helps the world remember past values. What I was saying yesterday, it's like a re-remembrance of what's really important in life. And it isn't just about money. It's about work-life balance. It's about family. Look at that picture. It's about that. Okay, it's a return to remembering what's really important. Land of the rising sun. You see, I kept getting that with when I was thinking about New Zealand earlier. Land of the rising sun, which is Japan. We've got the sun card here. I think there's some sort of link between Japan and New Zealand. Maybe there already is. but economically, that seems to help them, propel them. And they're coming through as the King of Wands. So again, a very, very strong energy here. Neither country are looking too bad. I'm actually going to just pull a card from another deck, my Healing Light Tarot deck, which always has a slightly denser vibration to it, this deck, I feel, but it's good. So I just want to see, what is the problem then? Show me the main problem facing New Zealand. Show me the main problem, because this is all looking very rosy and lovely, but you know, I'm sure there are challenges and problems. Show me the... that's weird, because we've got the World card now coming up as the problem. Explain that, please. What I'm sensing is that there's almost like this shift of power. And I don't know what timescale we're talking about. I'm sure this isn't 6 to 12 months. This might be decades. Feels as though there's a shifting of power from some of the places around the world that have been regarded as particularly influential, you know, to other countries. And I feel as though one of those countries that's going to be very much in the spotlight is New Zealand. And maybe it's to do with the rising of ancient knowledge and wisdom there. Maybe there are lands that are going to be coming up from the sea. It's a very volatile area, isn't it, in terms of earthquakes? There's always new energy being released there. I don't know, because as a challenge card, it's like I can't quite get, you know, there's so much there that's happening that is the world should be taking notice of, but the world isn't taking as much notice of it as it should be. So it's like this jockeying for position is what I'm feeling. There's like a jockeying for position, and they're just sort of getting, the Kiwis, they're just like getting along with it as they should be. Of course, there are problems in the country. There are in every single country. But, you know, doing okay, energetically doing okay. But yet their position on the wider world stage should be more prominent than it actually is. Yeah. They hold the star. The star is the card of the wish card. It's the card of healing as well. And then we've got the female figure dancing. Okay. It's not saying that New Zealand is paradise on earth or anything like that. It's just, it's holding a template is what I'm hearing. It's holding a template for New Earth. And it's not perfect, and it's still broken, and there's still healing that needs to happen there. But it's like the sun is rising there brighter, and the star is brighter there than it is in other parts of the world. So it's as though energetically, it's like dancing in the sunlight, you know? Dancing in the sunlight. Or was it Moonlight? That song, you know? But yeah, no one's looking. We should be looking. We will be looking, I'm hearing. I want to just answer one question that's come in about New Zealand though, which is that they seem to have a very high incidence of abuse towards women. And the suicide rate as well. I'm not going to look at suicide here because that's a whole other video. Okay, I'm not just going to strap that onto a hour and a half video as a little, you know, side subject. That's a big subject that needs to be talked about another time. Let's just have a look though about this abuse towards women, which apparently is one of the highest. One of you sent a question in about it, and it surprised me, to be honest. Yeah. New Zealand's high abusive rate on our women and children. Right, why is that then? So we've got this beautiful land, sacred land, rising sun energy, hope, healing. It's duality, isn't it? It's duality playing out. Of course it is. Of course it is, yeah. Where there is the brightest hope and the biggest light, there too you shall also find the darkness. That's true of anything. That's the law of duality. Where one is present, another also has to be. So with the light rising exponentially there, So too is there an uprising of the darkness. It's the classic battle of good versus evil, okay, which has gone on for millennia across our planet. If New Zealand is one of these big beacons, and it's a big beacon, showing the way for the rest of the world, then my God, there's going to be some darkness there that tries to stop that. That's the truth. And that's why this lady, Jacinda Ardern, is being attacked. You can't be that good. Yeah, she's that good. Okay. That's what it's to do with. It's to do with the classic dance of duality. It also probably is a very difficult place to be if you're not of a particularly higher vibration. You're not awake, basically, because you're not going to understand the earth underneath your feet. You're just not. You're going to be out of sync with it. Imagine walking on the earth and feeling completely out of sync with it all the time. It's going to trigger you. It's going to challenge you. So people are going to lash out. Who are they lashing out at? They're lashing out at the feminine, because it's the divine feminine energy that's trying to rise there. So of course there's going to be a high incidence of abuse towards women. Of course there is, because it's there, not just there, but it's a big area where she's rising. She's already risen, is what I'm hearing. Anything else to say on that, Metatron? Okay, let me just... hold on a minute. Now I'm hearing the song Thriller by Michael Jackson. Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. So 5 to midnight, I'm always talking about 5 to midnight. Midnight, when midnight strikes energetically, it's when we enter New Earth. We're at 5 to midnight. So right now, at a place which is really trying to be this beacon, the ghouls are coming out, basically. It's a horrible thing to say, but it's like it's bringing out the ghoul in some people. It's bringing out the shadow in some people who just can't tolerate the high vibration there. But yet they chose to be there. So, it's the classic thing of either you learn, you integrate, you adapt, or you sink. And some people are sinking, but unfortunately, as they're sinking, they're trying to take other people down with them. So those people they're trying to take down, we need to send them protection and light. It's the classic dance between dark and light, guys. What can I say? Let's just go back to Australia now. Somebody said that there was a kangaroo that's been seen around one of the towns in Australia. And I love that, because we're seeing the dolphins coming back to parts of Italy, and Venice have got the most amazing fish in the waters of Venice. Yeah, just like the dolphins in Venice, we have had a kangaroo in one of our capital cities. Brilliant. Love that. Right, let's just have a final question for Australia. So many of you are all dotted all over Australia. Very much look forward to coming one day. Few people mentioning I can't say the word. What the hell is wrong with me? Colonisation with Australia. Which is, of course, a valid point. Do you know what I really want to say with regard to that, though? And again, that's a whole video I could do in itself. But I'm picking up the energy of forgiveness is very needed. Very needed. Because I'm picking up an energy of still a lot of anger. And even if it's justified anger, I'm a Brit, okay? So part of the consciousness that created colonisation, part of the consciousness that was linked into the empire and all of that, okay? But yeah, there has to come a point where forgiveness comes in, doesn't there? Forgiveness is the thing that heals everything. Let's go to this day. Because yes, there has been underhand behaviour in the past. Other nations have behaved appallingly. Injustices have happened, without question. But how long are we going to just keep looking at that? When do we let it go? The Hierophant, the teacher, when do we let it go? When do we let go this energy of you've done this to us? I see it sometimes in some of the comments that come in when I ask for questions about Australia, and it's like, whoa, you know, I can feel it. It's almost like because I'm a British person, I actually feel it. It feels like it's like an assault on me as well. It's like, whoa, you know, Britain did this, Britain did that. Yeah, we probably did. Okay. Those of us who are working for the light, you know, over here in Britain, are working to try and transmute that our end as well. Forgiveness works both ways, but forgiveness is forgiveness, okay? Both sides need to be, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. Forgive us for what we've done, and then I forgive you for what you've done, you know? How long are we going to let these, how long are we going to keep picking the scar, is what I'm wanting to say. What are we waiting for in terms of an apology? Who from? Would that satisfy? Then what? The scar will still be there. You have to go back to forgiveness. Yeah. Reflection and forgiveness. The card of reflection. I don't really know what I'm asking here. Let's just ask for one message. Just one. I actually feel like I want to pull a card for the UK and a card for Australia. Let's do that. Let's do that. Sorry, my nose is going when I'm onto something. Like a dog sniffing out something. Where's Belly when you need her? So we're looking at UK, we're looking at Britain. I want to say Great Britain because it's like the days of Great Britain and the Empire, okay? Going over there, doing what we did. And we're looking at some guidance on that, please, Metatron. So card for Great Britain. Card for Great Britain. It's like if Great Britain was going to say something to Australia, what would it say? Okay? If Great Britain was going to be saying something to Australia, what would it say? Hoo-hoo-hoo. The artist, I know what that means. It's a controversial thing to say as well, but I'll say it. The truth is, when any difficulty happens to us in our life, take it down to personal level now, it can make us who we are. It can make us who we are. The person that hurts us the most is usually the person who actually we have the greatest opportunity to go into the depths and discover aspects of ourselves, discover our strength, discover our courage, discover the gifts within the challenge. There are always gifts within every single challenge. That's the law of duality. So for a country such as Britain to have gone and done what they did in whatever time frame we're talking about, however appalling it was, the artist is there to say it shaped you into being the country that you are today. Go back to how is Australia now going to rise to the challenge of these times with the virus. We had all those cards to do with absolute passion, you know, and motivation and drive, fire energy, you know. We're going to tackle this. We can do it. We're going to not just succeed, we're going to thrive. We're going to do better than we did before. And it's from that energy of actually difficulty in the past. You don't find your strength unless you're challenged. That's the truth. That is the truth. Boil it right down now to a personal level. I'm only who I am now because of things that have happened to me in the past which haven't been great. Things that haven't worked out. Difficulties that I've had, they've made me the person I am today, that can sit here now and even talk to you about these things. If I'd just had a life that was like la-di-la-di-la, isn't this lovely, let's go and pick daisies and lie in the sun all day and be fed grapes. I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be lying in the sun eating grapes. You know, the artist. You've become the artist, the great creator, the great creator. All that wand energy, that fire, passion. What would Australia say back to the UK? Silver vibrations. You see, in the middle we've got this card, which is the card of pregnancy. It's almost as though you have made us who we are. Not just the UK. I understand, obviously, you know, Indigenous people that were always there. I'm talking about this particular subject. What was done during colonial times, the abuses that happened. Silver vibrations. You see, silver is an energy which is about reflection. It's about looking into a mirror and being able to see who you truly are. And sometimes you're shown who you truly are by being shown what you are not. Shall I repeat that? It feels a really important point. You are shown who you are by understanding what you are not. So any attempt at being tried to be made small or insignificant or traumatized in any way, it's like at soul level, it's like, we're not that. We're not that. We're strong. We're survivors. Thank you for showing us that. That we are not victims of the past. That's, I feel, very much needed as well, that we are not victims of the past. That actually you helped birth the new. Some people won't accept that message, but it's what I feel is the truth. The people that won't accept the message are the ones that aren't able to let go to the anger, the frustration, the wrongs that were done. Nobody is saying there weren't wrongs that were done. There were. But how long do you hold on to it? It's like looking at any country around the earth. Any country you can look at and you can point the finger and you say, my God, they did this and they did that. Oh my God, and they did this. Are you going to carry that on to every single generation of that country and point the finger, sins of the father? Or are you going to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you, I forgive you. Forgiveness is the key. Right, I think we're virtually there, guys. Anything else to say? Just looking at the cards I've got out here. Just going to pull up a couple of cards on the relationship between Australia and New Zealand going forward. Australia and New Zealand going forward. We had all that sibling rivalry we were talking about earlier. Big brother and little sister. Let's just have a look going forward. There needs to be an end of the old ways. Keep getting this card coming out. Are these cards upside down? No, they're not. Relationship Okay, well, let's be under no illusions. There's quite a lot of hard work ahead between these two countries. There's a lot of work. There is a bit of struggle between them. I'm just going to stick to what I've said, which is I feel is that when Scott goes, whenever that is, I feel as though things start to improve a bit. There's a real clash there, I think, between these two energetically. And it's just hard work at the moment until he's there, until he's not there anymore, is what I'm sensing. Okay, let's close this out. Any other message? I'm getting a song. She's got diamonds on the soles of her shoes. That's Paul Simon, isn't it? She's got diamonds on the soles of her shoes. I think that's a nod to Jacinda. It's a good song. I think we need to let her lead the way. Scott Morrison still confuses me. There's a lot of potential there within him, but it's just, I don't know. I don't know whether he's going to be given the time, to be honest, to flower. Surrender and let it go is what Metatron is saying. Surrender and let it go. We kept getting that High Priestess card yesterday, didn't we? Which was linked into the something veiled that you're not supposed to see. So I'm not going to push it. I can't see it. Noticing there's a lot of chatter outside the window to start with. So seems to be a lot of chat behind his back. Maybe people are ganging up behind him that you can't see. There's talk in corridors I'm hearing. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Much love to everybody. See you all soon. I'm going to get this uploaded now. Bye-bye for now.